Some things can be left to random luck, but learning isn't one of them. Learning and development need to be intentional.
We know that when you deliberately engage employees through learning, they're more likely to find purpose in their work.
And it's in the near constant development of your employees where you can influence business results.
Whether you're an HR professional leading learning or a learning professional tasked with building a learning culture from scratch, you can reshape your organization through a culture of learning.
Throughout this course, we'll explore the core mindsets, key questions, tested approaches, and define some building blocks to help you create or maintain and drive a learning culture in your organization.
We'll leverage a simple approach rooted in real-world examples and lessons learned from our experience, ultimately helping you understand that you have a great opportunity and an even greater challenge to impact the business. I'm Naftali Bryant.
And I'm Jason Malero. We've had the pleasure of helping learners become their best through engaging strategies that build a culture of learning and drive high performance.
Join us as we take you on a journey to explore what a learning culture is all about and why it's important for your organization to invest in creating one.
Have you ever heard that if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room? If you were smartest, that would mean you've reached a position where there's not much else to be learned. But wouldn't it be so much better if you were in a room full of people you could learn from or who can help you refine what you know? Well, what if we increase the size of that room by the size of an organization and the exchange of learning is as commonplace as showing up and greeting one another? From the outside, I'd say that organization has a learning culture. There is one key characteristic that comes to mind when I hear of an organization having a culture of learning, and it's this. Learning is embedded in the fabric of the organization. It's where every employee is encouraged, empowered, and equipped to do the best work of their lives. It colors the way people interact with one another, how they approach their work, and ultimately move the business forward. Does that mean that it's all learning all the time? Probably not, but it's a place where learning creates a competitive advantage for both the employee and the organization. Today's savvy and highly sought-after job seeker looks for it as evidence of an organization's commitment and that of its leadership as well. I was approached once by a new employee at the end of a new hire orientation. She was excited, as you might expect. She said that after considering 2 job offers, she ultimately decided on our company because of one key reason. The company valued learning. That confirmed what she'd read about company values. You can tell a learning culture exists when learning initiatives reinforce what's trending within the organization and align with business priorities. Imagine this. A CEO sets a target dollar amount of revenue and sales as a company priority, which then cascades down to the rest of the org. Now imagine developing programs, events, and resources that are aligned with that goal. The learning function then prioritizes its core work and projects and focuses on initiatives that fully enable employees. So, while a workshop on effective communication and interaction is immediately valuable, a business-relevant communications workshop that enables the team to meet company goals is even more impactful. Building a learning culture is not a one-and-done action item. It's also not just event-based. It takes an investment, both in time and effort, but it also doesn't need to just remain aspirational, especially when we know it's a key driver of organizational success. Let's not just say we have a learning culture. Let's take action to keep learning top of mind.
Let's face it. The most successful organizations are 5 times more likely to have a learning culture, 3 times more likely to use that learning culture to attract new talent, and are also 3 times more likely to hold their leaders accountable for championing the often immeasurable value of learning. Now, before you run off and try to create a learning culture to validate these statistics, you'll want to understand why it's important to prioritize having one in the first place. In my experience, there are 3 main reasons why a learning culture is so important. The first is that your employees have an innate human drive to learn. It's their desire to satisfy their curiosity. Businesses that are smart prioritize this by empowering a learning culture in a myriad of ways. They focus on making people more knowledgeable, challenging their thinking, and enabling them to have the opportunity to learn every day. Ultimately, connecting them to this drive to learn. You'll also want to build a culture of learning because we spend most of our lives at work. Approximately 90,000 hours. Let's take a step back here and flip this around from your organization's perspective. 90,000 hours is the average amount of time you have to influence your employees. It's unreasonable to expect that your employees will be fully engaged that whole time. However, what happens if in those 90,000 hours, they never learned another thing? How would that impact your organization's bottom line? I'd argue there are a couple of things that could happen. People may not choose your organization as a desirable place to work. Or even worse, they do choose it, stay, and don't grow. Ultimately, leading to lower performance and productivity being stifled. The final reason a learning culture is important is that competition for top talent has reached an all-time high. Here's the reality. Your employees are highly sought after by other companies, especially your top performers. They're probably being recruited right now. When you emphasize a learning culture, you maintain an edge on your competition, attract and retain those top employees, ultimately reducing those competitive distractions. I remember working with a new manager who had just been promoted to manager for the first time in her career. I had just launched a comprehensive new manager development program full of innovative learning and experiences to build management mindsets and capabilities necessary to succeed in a growing technology organization. A few months after participating in that learning experience, this manager was promoted to director. She told me she owed her promotion to her participation in the management development program. And if she hadn't been afforded that learning experience, she would have left the company for a new opportunity. She didn't stop there, though. She also became an advocate for more learning and championed any program or initiative my learning team was spearheading and propelled a culture of learning within our own team. So here's my challenge for you right now. What can you do to create the culture of learning your organization needs to thrive, helping your top performers do their best work and stay? Who do you need to enlist to help you do it? Learning is too important to be overlooked as a critical business priority.
We now have 5 generations working together, from Gen X to Millennials and on to Gen Z. Today's workforce is dynamic and rich in ways never seen before. Millennials and Gen Z currently account for slightly over a third of the workforce. In the next decade, that figure will likely jump to 58%, making these the most influential subset of your total employee base. In the past, they've faced sweeping criticism about things like lack of commitment, demand for flexibility, and for ongoing and high-quality development provided by their employers. But if you look closer at those criticisms, they're actually shifts that learning professionals can leverage to support a learning culture that meets the needs of all the generations. What if a perceived lack of commitment is instead the driver for renewed focus on creating an impactful employee experience? Think back to 10 years ago when our employee onboarding was ensuring employees had the tools they needed to get up to speed quickly and know where their desk was. Millennials and Gen Z now want an experience throughout their entire employee lifecycle that's exciting and offers them deep learning about the company and themselves. Websites like Glassdoor and Comparably offer both current and former employees an opportunity to openly share their experiences, both good and bad. This is where a culture of learning can play a key role in positively impacting that experience. For example, I worked with leaders in a tech organization to create a comprehensive, week-long onboarding experience that included curriculum built around communication, emotional intelligence, and leadership skills. Employees talked about their experience on social platforms, leading to a significant impact on hiring and retention. Next, let's take a look at millennials and Gen Z's demand for flexibility, which actually equates to an increased desire for work-life integration. In fact, 43% of Gen Z learners prefer a fully self-directed and independent approach to learning. Building a dynamic learning culture and environment conducive for them to learn anywhere, anytime, and in their own unique way can help strike the right harmony between work and life. And lastly, a demand for ongoing and high-quality development has led to a need for an evolved learning and development approach supported by a blend of high-touch interactions leveraging best-in-class learning tools. The goal is to create a space for ongoing dialogue and feedback on the tools and methodologies you intend to leverage for learning, and involve employees in the continuous improvement of the learning culture that best suits their needs. Be flexible to more dynamic development approaches. So, how can you best support turning these criticisms into the powerful shifts in mindset that can drive a healthy learning culture? 2 things you can do. Accept your employees' perspectives and unique approaches to learning, and embrace changing it up a bit in your traditional strategies and approaches to accommodate their unique influence. Millennials and Gen Zers are proactively seeking out self-development and training methods to build dynamic careers that enable them to job stay rather than job hop. Both of these generations have and will continue to shape what a learning culture means and how it shows up in your organizations. We need to pay close attention to these generations as we look to build and maintain vibrant learning cultures.
The future of work is fast approaching. It's concealed behind a cloud of uncertainty and change led by digital leaps in technology and the continuous rise of the side hustle economy. We need to be ready because we will be called upon to help our organizations drive and support upskilling our workforce to execute on this new agenda. What are the trends you need to be aware of, though? How will those trends impact your ability to create and drive a culture of learning? Well, let's focus on the top 4 trends that I believe will have the greatest impact. The first trend is that learning is now becoming a number 1 priority because of how quickly things are changing. We need to help people learn, unlearn, and relearn all over again. To drive their own journey of development, tailored to the changing needs in their role, and focused on developing their whole self. Enabling them to leverage newer technologies like personalized chatbots and always-on learning experience platforms. We also need to help employees break bad habits that aren't optimizing their performance, replacing them with new ones more aligned with core business goals. Next up is talent mobility versus talent complacency. Talent mobility is about how well you support the movement and development of talent within your organization so that you don't have to rely heavily on hiring externally to fill present and future roles that support business needs. The best talent will need to be developed from within at increased levels for sustained business success. Another trend is the never-ending transformation of leadership. Did you know that 85% of the jobs that will exist in 2030 haven't even been invented yet? Think about what that will mean for your leaders. With the growing number of first-time managers, there's a need for more emotionally intelligent leaders. They need to inspire, coach, and connect more deeply with employees. And also curate transformational experiences for growth rather than emphasizing linear career progression. And the final trend is the fact that faster, easier, and better HR technology will impact learning. You'll find yourself frequently being asked to develop learning strategies to drive adoption and increase overall speed and efficiency. The content that we'll be asked to create or curate will need to be nimble, easy to access, and align with the simplicity and scale of these newer HR technologies, such as cloud-deployed human capital management suites and automation tools. It's important that you stay up to date on these trends and others that will impact learning over the next decade. Read books and articles on the latest research from organizations like Deloitte, Burson, LinkedIn Learning, Association for Talent Development, and Gartner. As you're creating a culture of learning, it's imperative that you seamlessly balance today's challenges with curiosity and understanding of the opportunities tomorrow will bring to help your organization.
These days, the shelf life of skills is anywhere between 2 to 5 years. Because of that, learning has changed in many ways. You can create a culture of learning that keeps pace with those changes by paying attention to your learners. What you'll notice is your learners themselves are behaving differently than they did even 5 years ago. And that's thanks to several key drivers. The first is accessibility of training material. We can learn on the go. Where once it took some time, now mobile learning allows us to find what we want, when we want it, by simply looking it up on any number of devices. Today, gaining knowledge and new skills is limited only by how fast you can use your phone. It should be no surprise that our just-in-time, point-of-need access has had a dramatic effect on how we learn and develop. Promoted as part of the organization's learning strategy, mobile learning not only eliminates access as a barrier to entry, but also works to strengthen the learning culture. Another key change in the way we learn is the increased quality and volume of learning videos. With video-based learning, there's always an instructor available, and the learner's schedule is an opportunity, no longer a limitation. Video as a means of information and knowledge transfer are trending upward with no signs of slowing down. Finally, game-based tools or simulations are also changing the game, pun intended. They drive application of skills and boost retention, all while increasing engagement. More than just including elements of play into training, this kind of learning can be both the means and the end of learning objectives. It's not just for the primary school classroom. It's found its way into the workplace as a non-traditional, yet viable tool that allows learners to acquire and practice new skills. As you develop your learning culture, make sure you're proactive about helping learners by keeping track of the topics or skills that are in demand and current delivery methods. Go ahead and backtrack to what skills you gained more than 5 years ago. Chances are they're outdated at this point. Now think ahead. How can you help your employees develop and strengthen their soft skills to be effective leaders, collaborators, and augment the broader culture of the organization?
I worked with a CEO recently who was struggling to understand the importance of why he needed to embrace learning as a key part of building a high-performing organization. He would often challenge me on why a learning function was even needed. He told me that smart people will grow and develop on their own. They don't need any help. I asked him, why do you believe that? His reply was, because he doesn't do anything to stop employees from participating in learning. I remember spending many meetings working with him to articulate why we needed his buy-in to build a culture of learning. But it's really simple. The bottom line is, when leaders embrace learning as a critical piece to long-term business success and model it, people will follow. I have a young son, and one of the things he sees me doing regularly is reading. And there isn't a day that goes by that he isn't pulling on my wife and me to read him a new book. He even tries to pretend like he's reading all by himself. People do what people see. So if your employees see your leaders prioritizing learning, then they will likely follow suit and capitalize on the organization's investments in learning. And leaders hold the resources needed to make investment decisions that impact a culture of learning. Without buy-in, it'll be hard to get the budget and resources you need. But if you get executive support, you can build the programs, initiatives, and learning experiences your organization is thirsty for. Now, establishing leadership buy-in might not be easy to do. It depends on your role, level in the organization, and your existing relationship with the leadership team. But here are 3 principles I recommend operating by to help you get started. Principle number 1, demonstrate your expertise. Learning is continuing to evolve with new methodologies and approaches to changing behavior and increasing performance. Showcasing your understanding of this constant evolution will help you be seen and respected as a thought leader. Principle number 2, intimately understand the problems your leaders are trying to solve. This is about getting as close to the business as possible to learn about the major pain points holding back business strategy, or the opportunities for learning to increase lagging performance. And finally, principle number 3, deliver easy and impactful learning solutions. Your executives are already busy and preoccupied with leading their respective functions. When you ask for their buy-in and support, it needs to be easy for them to say yes and hard for them to say no. Wasting their time is not an option. Look, getting buy-in is challenging. It can be filled with anxiety, constant second-guessing, and even sometimes pure luck. However, when you have the buy-in of the top team, learning stays alive in your organization. Think of who you need to help drive your learning strategy forward right now, and choose one thing you can do this week to get their engagement and support. It is the only way you can drive a shared ownership and partnership for a learning culture. When you plant a tree, the only way for a tree to grow is for the tree to be planted and rooted in good soil. Once that's the case, the tree needs to be watered regularly, exposed to proper sunlight, and given the right attention needed to prosper. If not, that tree withers and dies. Similar to creating a culture of learning. You can have all the fancy programs, learning experiences, and initiatives, but if the environment doesn't support or prioritize the need for people to grow, all that work falls flat, resulting in your organization being stuck and not achieving its overall business objectives. So you'll want to establish a growth environment. There are a couple things we need to understand about that. But first, let's define what a growth environment is. A growth environment is a place where people are frequently challenged, pushed out of their comfort zone, and changed as a result of growth being modeled and expected at all levels. To build a growth environment, you have to first assess where you are as an organization so you know how far you have to go. Here are 4 key growth questions I encourage you to think about as you interact with employees and leaders while you observe whether or not your organization has a growth environment. Are people challenging each other to grow every day in meetings and one-on-ones? What's the tolerance for risk-taking? Who is modeling growth? How ready are people to take on new challenges? If you don't have a growth environment yet, you need to challenge your employees to develop a growth mindset. This is a mindset where employees relish the opportunity to learn and believe that they never fully arrive and can continue to learn and improve. But challenge yourself as a learning professional to have a growth mindset first. When you believe that you can grow and act on it, it becomes infectious to the organization. Leaders see it and get inspired to grow themselves. Employees turn to you to get encouragement, guidance, and thought leadership. This causes a chain reaction of growth. Now, if you already have a growth environment, you can start challenging managers and leaders to prioritize growth conversations and be available as resources for learning. These can look like engagement conversations, focused on understanding if your people have one foot in the door or one foot out. Performance conversations to help people understand whether they're hitting the mark or falling short. And career conversations, where managers double down on making sure employees have the tools, support, and environment they need to grow the most. Having consistent, regular discussions like these affords the organization, through its leaders and managers as resources for learning, an opportunity to not only discover, but support a growth environment. I want to caution you, though. There are 4 false mindsets that could prevent you from building and fostering this growth environment. Things like striving for speed instead of consistent progress over time. Assuming that growth will just magically happen. Choosing what is interesting over what is important. And focusing on the fear of failure rather than the triumph of success. I encourage you to prepare the right soil for your learning culture to actually produce an environment where people are growing and going to the places only learning can take them.
The fuck was that? I fucking was supposed to flash over that wall. And it went, nope, you just flashed into it.
If you've ever given someone a gift, you know the odds of it being a hit are 50-50. The chances are reduced even more when you lack information about what the recipient needs or even wants. Well, the odds are the same if not lower when rolling out learning programs and initiatives. Why? Because there's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all approach to learning. Modalities differ, interest in the content varies, and learners' objectives are highly contextual and individualized. Now, while alignment with the business's top priorities is an important first step to developing a learning culture, you want to collaborate with your learners to identify what they need. Including employees in the entire development process, especially the beginning steps, goes a long way to ensuring the success of your program. Every employee, regardless of their level within the organization, should know how to support company performance through their baseline contribution and how to achieve more. Both require skills and knowledge that, once defined in collaboration with the organization, determine learning and development priorities for that employee. Excluding employees in the development phases of learning programs could be a costly mistake. Consider it part of your needs analysis. A simple needs assessment yields the right data to start developing effective programming and should address what employees need and want. Our role as a learning function is to help identify performance gaps and then pinpoint solutions. What better source for effective data than employees themselves? Do they favor instructor-led training, or would a topic be best explored at their own pace via online delivery? What day of the week or time of day complements their schedule? Perhaps they're looking to better deliver in their current role or level up for the next. I once scheduled time in a conference room and wrote a question on the erasable wall. What do you want to learn? I then invited employees to drop in for some snacks and to have a go at providing answers to that question right up on the wall, followed by an upvote. Once you know what your employees need or want to learn, it's time to use that information to start building your strategy. I used my employees' feedback to create a robust learning plan, one that was representative of what skills and knowledge employees were most inclined to acquire. I also had information that helped boost engagement and adoption because I learned from them their preferred scheduling rhythms. Including employees as part of your assessment is an ends-focused approach you can use to determine what will be most impactful to your learners and the organization.
Creating a culture of learning is already challenging enough. We have to deal with the daily hustle and bustle and constant shifting of priorities in our organization. Oh, let's not forget our overwhelmed, overworked, and overextended managers who need to develop increased levels of leadership daily. And teams that double in size or expand globally and need to be fully aligned to meet the organization's aggressive goals. Right now, our learning efforts to support this fluid work environment primarily focus on event-based learning opportunities that won't make our organization embrace the culture of learning. Instead, we need to embed learning where people see it as a driver of business success and not a distraction to getting work done. Because learning happens in day-to-day moments, not just one-time learning events. When I work with leaders, I like to coach them on maximizing what I call their moments of truth. A moment of truth is where employees are the most engaged and open to learn, grow, and adopt behaviors critical to driving their team and the business forward. There are at least 3 moments of truth you can use to influence your organization. Those are one-on-ones, team meetings, and team offsites. These are those regular touch points of daily business that are usually packed with task and project focused work. You could instead leverage these moments to do small things to impact employee development. When you help leaders create the space for learning in their normal rhythms of business, by the time you get to those larger learning initiatives, you will have created a momentum of learning. For example, I worked with the head of HR to create a simple exercise she could use at her staff meeting. I advised her to create 5 to 15 minutes of space in her agenda for the team to focus on learning. Team members would take turns presenting on a topic they felt would help the team learn and grow. Anything from a book they read, a course they took, or an article they found compelling, as long as they believed it would add value to the team. She tried it out with her team at a monthly meeting, and the concept took off from there, becoming a cornerstone of the team's regular agenda. One thing to note, embedding learning doesn't always have to start with the leader. Employees can embrace it for themselves and not wait on their manager. The average employee has 24 minutes to learn every week. You can show people how to use that time to create impactful moments of learning and growth with the right tools and maybe even a playbook, such as setting aside 10 minutes a day to focus on learning something new or critical to their job before they jump into work. To build muscle, you can't just go to the gym once a year and expect to become a star athlete. That muscle needs to be worked on constantly, so it gets the definition and maturity it needs to grow to true strength. Think of the one thing you could do within the next 30 days to embed learning in the moments of truth for your organization. Embedding learning into the moments that matter is a great way to ensure your organization is fit to win in the long run.
Organizations that intend on competing in today's talent-driven market are facing a stark reality about a culture of learning. High-performing, future hires are drawn to organizations where they have ongoing opportunities for learning. Once they're hired, they stay for the same reason. The opportunity cost for their time is high, and employees will spend it where they can make and receive the most impact. Organizations with a keen eye on learning trends are better equipped to develop their learning and development program, and better equipped to impact their employees. But what are they doing well? A few things come to mind that you can start doing right now. The first is to recognize that soft skill, or rather, real skill development is still in demand along with role-specific or technical skill development. Both are equally important as employees look to prioritize their learning. The workshops and resources you offer should help your employees hone and refine both or either set of skills. And they should include both internal and external resources where in-house offerings aren't possible or strategic. You can also leverage data as you develop learning programs and invest in tools that yield effective analytics to help you do more than just make a case for dollar investment. These tools should help you make strategic decisions on how to build and refine the organization's learning strategy. The same data should also give insight into your employees' learning behaviors. Finally, recognize that a good, better, best mindset is not limited to consumers. Learning programs and tools go through demand fluctuations just like any other product, so it's important to market your learning in the same way. Think of a funnel. In this case, a growth funnel, where you start with awareness and you have a lot of potential learners aware of development opportunities. Then you need to spark their desire. Get them engaged in learning, encourage them to set intentions, and then apply their learning. The learners in the middle and lower stages of the funnel experience skill development and performance through application. They've moved beyond awareness to engagement and ultimately experience growth. How and why they move down the funnel depends on your marketing, and even the most committed learners can fall right out of the funnel if they're not nurtured carefully. Your employees are selective customers looking for learning opportunities that align with their career and personal growth. It's vital for you to keep current of what's happening in the learning space. This will allow you to foster a learning culture that moves the business forward and helps employees remain current and agile themselves. Like any worthy endeavor, creating a learning culture will not be without its challenges or even roadblocks. Let's discuss a few you might face and how to overcome them. First, you might find yourself facing resistance across the business, and it can look a variety of ways, from low registration and a high number of no-shows in your workshops and programs, to being overlooked as a key resource within the organization. Maybe practices associated with learning and growth have been historically misaligned in your organization or not had the desired impact. In some cases, it may simply be a lack of awareness of how you and the overall learning function add value. Over time, this can compromise credibility and create perception challenges. So what should you do if the organization doesn't know about how you add value? You let them know. Document your employees' skills and opportunities for growth. This is a starting point for strategic meetings with partners and stakeholders across the business where you can discover needs, communicate your value add, and ask for help bridging performance and other gaps. Another key part of learning and development is demonstrating ROI, which is challenging because learning is not always easily quantified. With the exception of quota-bearing roles, for example, the application of skills and ultimate behavior change is often difficult to measure. After training, you might see a specific quota requirement or quality measure increase, and success is clear. But what about a workshop where objectives are less tangible, like one focused on strengthening team collaboration or on elevating the coaching skills of managers? That would be difficult to measure without observation and input from colleagues and would require longer-term observations. But I can't think of anyone in a better position to identify what measures would tell the most effective narrative about your success than you. Finally, one of the most significant obstacles we face as learning professionals is time, or the lack of. Learners are challenged to focus on the resources and programs available to them. While you can create more time, you can leverage tools, strategize accordingly, or market learning in whatever increments and medium is viable to the individual learner, so long as they continue learning and growing. Is it easy? Will it happen overnight? Not at all. But I try to anchor myself in the reason why I do this in the first place, to be a part of someone else's growth and help them realize their full potential.
When you think of success, what do you think of? Or better yet, when was the last time you were successful at something? Typically, we move through our work and our lives searching for success. But sometimes it's hard to pinpoint how we got there. It's like having a map in your hands. Without a clear idea of where you want to go, that map is useless. The same thing goes for determining the success of the learning culture you've worked tirelessly to create. You have to take a step back to truly understand where you want to go and what you want success to look like for your organization. Meaning, you need to clearly define success for your learning culture. Work with your employees, managers, and senior leaders to develop 2 to 3 quarterly success measures. Also, inquire about the metrics that matter most for your organization, which could be things like increases in employee retention or engagement. Make sure what you measure, though, fits the voice of the organization and aligns well with the company culture. Now, there are many traditional methods of measurement, but I want to share some alternative ways to measure your learning culture, because sometimes it's hard to quantify its success. It's like oxygen. You know it's there, you know it's having an impact on your daily functioning, but you can't really see it. However, there are 3 main signs that let you know it's present and making a difference in your organization. The first sign is there is a pull for learning. This is where your organization is calling upon you for guidance and support to solve business challenges first, rather than you pushing learning initiatives down to the organization. A second sign is a consistent, positive organizational learning narrative. These are the hallway conversations, the mentions on social media, and the overall feedback from managers and learners that speaks to how learning is showing up and making an impact. Finally, you know your culture of learning is having success when you have a regular seat at multiple tables. There used to be the saying that you just need a seat at the table. But with the rise and influence of learning at all levels, having a regular seat at multiple tables is a true sign of an impactful learning culture. These include being invited to senior leadership meetings, frontline manager team meetings, and offsite planning sessions. This is where you can share the impact a learning culture is having on your organization. Also, be aware of a few other more subtle indicators of success, such as employee-led peer-to-peer learning initiatives, managers and leaders stepping up to teach workshops, and the rise of learning champions, those employees who believe in what you are doing and work to partner with you to amplify learning across the organization. The journey of creating a learning culture is a long road. Make sure you're tracking your results, getting regular feedback from your key stakeholders, consistently assessing your progress, and capturing lessons learned along the way. It might take a little time at first to really know what to measure and if you're achieving success. However, with perseverance and consistency over time, you'll get the hang of it and deliver a culture of learning that has a lasting impact for years to come.
We hope you've gained some valuable insights about the exciting impact a learning culture can have.
Creating a true culture of learning is an opportunity to empower your organization to be more adaptable to change and open the doors to more innovation.
It also reduces employee turnover, helps promote the right people to leadership positions quickly, and helps make your employees more productive.
Depending on what stage you're at in the process of creating a learning culture, there are many additional resources to help you along the way.
I recommend checking out our other course, Tips for Learner Engagement, and other courses like Organizational Culture and Corporate Instruction Foundations. There's a wealth of information right here to help you.
I love this quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson. What lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us.
You have what it takes, and there's no better time to get started than right now.
Instead of looking at creating a culture of learning as a mountain to climb, look at it as a structure you're equipped to build brick by brick.
Find us on LinkedIn. We'd love to hear from you and offer additional support.
So keep building toward more influence and impact, because learning never peaks, and neither should your desire to build, foster, or reimagine a culture where it is alive and well and offers your learners a really great experience.